Hello, my name is Sandy Adomaitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun. Hey, you made it. I snagged our favorite table, the good one in the back. Come on, take a seat. We're all here now. Today, we have two special guests and two of my favorite people. Tony Graffia, executive producer of Outlander, which airs on Starz, and John Wirth, creator and executive producer of Netflix Wu Assassins. Combined, John and Tony have written hundreds of hours of television, and they're the best at what they do. Tony and John and I all worked on Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles together, so you'll hear us mention that. I think you're going to enjoy this interview. Tony and John talk about what they look for when hiring a writer to what you can do to annoy them in a meeting. Plus, I spring a fun pop quiz on them entitled, So You Wrote the Show, But You Know the Show. Let's get started. When I thought about putting together this episode and who the first guest would be, I knew immediately I wanted the two of you. We're friends and we've worked together, but I'm a huge fan of both of your writing and know how much wisdom you have to share. Since a lot of our audience are breaking into the industry, I wanted to ask right out of the gate, what do you look for when you read a new writer? Tony, do you want to take that one first?
Yes. When I'm reading a new writer, I always say there's three things I look for, which is emotion, emotion, and emotion. Kind of like location, location, location in real estate. I just really want to read something that makes me feel. It doesn't have to make me cry, but it helps if it makes me cry. The other stuff, I guess, I feel like you can learn and you can pick up. You know, you can get the voice of the show. You can learn about structure, from classes and writing books. You can learn format. There's a lot of things that you can hone your skill as you as you get experience in a TV writer's room. But the one thing I don't know if it's possible to learn is the emotion and how to take the raw material in your own heart and your own life experience and get that on the page. If you've got something that really digs into my heart and I go and I just feel it, then I know that there's that gem of talent there that everything else will come together later. But that's what I want to feel, because if I read something and it feels kind of dry and flat, then I think a lot of people have that skill, but it takes a lot more to get the other. And I think you need both in TV. And so that's the main thing I look for.
And John?
I'm not surprised to hear Tony say that, because I remember when we were doing Sarah Connor, probably the largest writer's room I've ever been involved with. So,
it was. I think it was.
And there was a lot of people burning our daylight in that room, as you recall, Tony. But we finally split that room in two because we were getting inundated with work. And Sandy, you probably remember that. I think you were writer's assistant on that show.
At that point.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had two teams of writers, and one team, Josh Friedman and I referred to as Team Get Shit Done. And then the other team, which was Tony's team, was Team Feelings.
I forgot that. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that. And that's the only show I've been on, actually, that I can remember that split the writer's room in two, and we actually had the two actual rooms.
Yeah.
With two actual different boards and everything. That was
that was unusual.
And the second room had couches, right?
Yeah, that's where Dan Thompson slept. Yeah, he's gone on to do quite well for himself, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We
amazing things.
We had some amazing writers on that show. I believe everybody's done very, very well. It was a talented group, and we learned a lot on that show because Josh and yourself, John, were very good, very patient teachers and very good at running things. It was a very smooth running show and a lot of camaraderie and a really, really fine time we had on that show. One of the best experiences that I've had.
I just loved going to work every day. I really did.
I just start reading and see if I get past page 10. If I can't get past page 10, then I just put that script down, because what I've found over the years is, if I have a pile of scripts, we don't have piles of scripts anymore because everything comes in digitally now, but there are a lot of competent scripts being submitted for these jobs. There are a lot of competent writers. What you're looking for is that other thing, whether, as Tony says, it's something that makes her feel something when she's reading, or whether it's something that surprises you. Everything, it seems like, I know this is not true. It feels like every story's been told and we've seen everything, on television or on our devices or streaming services or whatever you're looking at now. But finding a fresh way to say something, I think, is really important. And that's really evident when you see it.
It's funny that John says that you read the first 10 pages and you read it in order, and if it doesn't grab you, and I'd say most readers, showrunners do that. And I had to just chime in that I do the opposite, which I hadn't thought about this before until you were asking that and John said that. But I kind of like to just open. I mean, I do start at the beginning, but I often will just open the script to the middle, or just open it and start reading a scene and see if the scene grabs me. And in thinking about it, I realize I probably do that because that's how I write. I don't write in order, and I know that's highly unusual. I really only know one other writer that I sometimes write with, Matt Roberts, right now on Outlander, and I have written some scripts together. And the reason that we can do that is because we both don't write in order. We just look at the outline, and this is why, and maybe important for new writers to maybe try this. I never get writer's block ever. Because I just, and it's not because I'm a great writer. It's just I trick myself by saying, "Oh, what's the scene I'm the most excited about?" And that way I'm dying to jump in and write it, and it comes very easily to me. And then I'm like, "Well, what's the next scene I want to write?" And I keep my outline next to me while I'm writing, and then I just check mark the scene after it's written. So I jump around, and I rarely write the beginning first. Sometimes I'll write the ending first. And then the only place I get a little bit of writer's block is the very last scene, because it's usually the scene that I was the least excited about writing, maybe the hardest scene. It's usually a group scene with a lot of people, like a party scene. It's rarely the most emotional scene. It's usually a utilitarian scene that I put off writing to the very end. And then at the end, I just put it all together like a big puzzle. And it's somehow, and then I smooth it out. Then I just give it one read over to kind of smooth it out with the transition.
Right.
And it's an unusual style, but it works for me. But I feel kind of like that when I'm reading writers. I want to be able to just open it and have a scene that is impressive. And I won't just read one scene per script. I would give them more of a chance than that. I read several scenes, and sometimes I read from the front. But I also feel like if it's a really good script, you should be able to open it and read something that really knocks you out. Writers are really, working writers are really busy people. Showrunners are very busy people. And, they'll say they're going to read them all the way through, but I know that that's just not, that's probably
possible.
I haven't met anybody that actually does that, but they do respect other writers. They'll give them enough of a shot, and that's your shot, and you got to take it, and you got to be able to make it work.
Right. Which leads me to, what do you prefer? Do you like to read pilots or specs? John, do you want to start off with that one?
I don't really care, what I read. I mean, and by the way, just add something what Tony was saying, when you're reading a script and you're looking for a writer, if you're building a staff, you're not always looking for the same thing every time you sit down to read. If I need a strong partner and I hire Tony, or if Tony needs a strong partner and she hires me, then the next person you're looking for, you might be looking for somebody who really has an understanding of a period, or you might be looking for somebody who can write action, or you might be looking for somebody who can really write psychological horror, or, I'm making this up, but when you're building a team of writers, you're looking for different things, and you may have in your head, when you sit down to assemble that team, what you need, and you may start reading something and go, oh, this is perfect for that. I really don't care what it is I'm reading. I've discovered over time that, as Tony was saying earlier, you can teach somebody your show, and they can kind of learn it just by osmosis, by living in the writer's room, which is how I run a show. I make everybody live in there, basically. And that hasn't changed really for many years. But I know when we were doing Hell on Wheels, you remember when I hired Mickey Johnson, Sandy. She was a playwright, and she was living in Dallas, and Jamie O'Brien came into my office, and I was really looking for someone like Tony, a senior writer to come in and just help with that show on a very high level. And I was having trouble finding somebody, and Jamie walked in and she said, here's a play, read it. And, this is not a TV writer. She's never worked in television. And if you can't get past the first page, just stop. So she handed me this play, and I stayed in my office, and I couldn't stop reading it. I read it from the first page to the very last. And then I walked into Jamie's office and I said, how do we get in touch with this person? She drove out to Los Angeles to have a meeting with me, and I hired her. And that was, 5 or 6 years ago. And she was just nominated for an Emmy, by the way, for
Ozark?
Ozark, yeah. So it really was, in that script, it was what I was talking about before. I mean, the story and the language just leapt off the page, and it was unto itself. And I knew this person doesn't know anything about television, and she's not what I need, but she can really be additive to the show. And I'll try to fill in other areas and use her for what it is I think she can do, and what she adds to the show is special.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, Tony, how about you? Pilots or specs?
I think people don't really write specs that much anymore. That in the olden days, people would write specs. In fact, when I started in TV a long time ago, longer than I want to think about, no one wrote pilots. It would be considered almost arrogant to write your own pilot. Everybody copied shows, and the point was to show that you could mimic the voice of a show, which is a talent in itself. In fact, some people are great mimickers, and they can write on a show and capture the voice of a show, and they cannot find their original voice and write something original.
When you're meeting a new writer for staffing, what are the qualities that you're looking for in them? And is there any particular pet peeves maybe that you had in a general meeting that a young writer has done? I don't know, bad example would be they make fun of the show that they're actually interviewing for. Not a good thing to do. But if we take anything away, don't go in and just dump on the show that you're interviewing for. But what do you look for in
If a writer starts the sentence with the object of a sentence instead of the subject of a sentence, they're dead to me. So, for instance, if somebody came in and said, me and Tony were on the Sarah and Connor Chronicles together, I would say, I don't care if you went to Harvard. That's not how we talk.
Not all of us were English teachers at one time in our lives.
Well, that's incorrect English. And if you're going to be a professional writer, you should know how to speak, I say.
Or English majors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I could give you a list of things that are to do not do.
Go ahead.
I don't want to be a mean person, but I do. If it's for newer writers, they need to know these things, because as unbelievable as it is, I've seen all of these things. But like John said, as your 8th grade English teacher probably told you, that grammar counts and spelling counts. And in terms of, like, if you write, if you do turn in a script, it it can be sloppy because it will show it's a turnoff. And you can be a brilliant writer, but if it's riddled with mistakes, it just has this air of that you don't care. And how hard is it to get, if you're not good at spelling or grammar, that's okay, because some people aren't, it's not their thing, and I understand that. But then care enough to have a friend or a colleague read it for you and help you clean it up. Because you're just basically saying, I don't care. Because if you really want a job, you're going to do everything from, you care about how it's the old fashioned stuff. And I know that gets laughed at sometimes, but it's how you dress. I know, writers are cool. They don't dress up. They don't have to wear a suit to a meeting. You want to look like a cool writer. If you just don't show effort of any kind and you think you're too cool for school, and that happens a lot, it's just going to tell me that you don't really care. And I don't want someone that doesn't care, because I care a lot. And we all care when we have, like John said, we had a huge staff on Sarah Connor, and we've had big staffs on all the last few shows I've been on. And we all care. We all love the show. We're all obsessed with the show. And if we're not when we start, we are, because you live, eat, and breathe the show 24 hours a day. It just permeates your entire being, and you fall in love with it, and you have to do your best work. And so, even when we take a break and we're having lunch, we're like still talking about the show. Even when we take a break from the writer's room, if we go into the lunchroom and eat lunch, we end up half the time talking about either what we watched on TV last night, or because we all love TV, or we keep talking story because we're just into it. So when you come in for a meeting, and like John said, you could either make fun of the show, which people have done, or say they haven't watched. I've had people say, hey, they haven't watched the show, which I don't know who could go to a meeting for the show and not have watched the show. Or they'll say, they should come in and say, I watched your show and here's what I think. You don't have to be fake and be like, I love the show if it's not a show you love. Because you can, but you can find something. Yeah, I've interviewed and I've worked on shows that I never would watch, or that I actively hated maybe. But I made myself find something that I loved about the show so that I could get into the show. And you're going to be paid to do that. So you owe that. And if you can't fake it, then you shouldn't interview for that show, or you shouldn't go on that show. You should be honest and say, I don't think I can do my best. It's not my type of show, which actually I've said that before in meetings and lost myself jobs, but I tried to be honest. But when people come in and say, they should come in saying, I watched the show and here's what I think, or I'd love to be part of it. But if I have to bring up, so have you watched the show? I feel like I shouldn't have to say that. Show a passion and an interest in the show. I've been asked this, what don't you like about the show? Then be honest and say, well, I think the arc with such and such characters is not as strong as it could be. And you say it in a positive way. You don't rag on the show.
I think the show's stupid.
No.
No, don't say that.
No. But once you're in the writer's room, you're going to be expected to critique things and tell your real opinion. And the worst thing is to get a new writer who gets in the room and agrees with everything the showrunner says.
Yeah.
And because the showrunner will say something and the new writer wants to score points. So they'll go, that, we should do that. And then everybody else in the room after like a week then can't stand you because they're like, that person's a kiss ass. They're just agreeing with the showrunner. So you have to have sometimes the guts to go against the showrunner and say, well, you're asking my opinion. I'm paid for my opinion. You're asking for my opinion, and you tell them what you really think. Now, you don't argue constantly, or you say your opinion once, and if the showrunner says, thanks, but I think we're going to go this way with it, then we're going this way. Everybody's marching that way because that's your job, is to support the showrunner's vision. But you should at least speak up and say your opinion, even if it's different. And once in a while, the showrunner will go, God, you know what? That's a good idea. You're right. You're right. That's a better way. And I've heard this expression of the best idea wins. And I think most shows feel that way. Like, it doesn't matter if it comes from a baby writer or the showrunner. Somehow a good idea will get traction in the room. And sometimes that's your idea, and sometimes it's somebody else's, but it's a team effort.
That's great. That makes sense. Okay, last question. Starting out, what was your biggest misconception of what it means to be a working writer?
I thought it was easier, honestly. I really I mean, that's true. I just really had no idea how hard it is.
A lot of hours.
The hours are, hard. They're not so hard for a young person. When I think back when I was in my 20s, I loved working the long hours, and, you kind of bruise your way through the day as a writer, and then we'd go to the set and, hang out there all night. And I mean, it was fun. But as time goes on, those hours get harder. But it's hard. It's hard to write well when you're a person with not very much experience. And it's hard not to feel like you're on trial. One of the most empowering things anybody ever said to me was when Michael Gleason, my first job was Remington Steele, and I was working on that show, and I had written one episode. That was the extent of my professional credits, one episode. And so I was working on my second episode, and I kept thinking I was going to get, like, any day I would drive into the lot and my parking space would be filled by somebody else, or my office would be, somebody else would be sitting in my office.
Yeah.
And he called me into his office and he said, I just want to tell you something. I said, okay. He said, you're not on trial. I will never forget that. I mean, that was so empowering because I was just afraid I wasn't going to cut it because it was hard. And other people were writing scripts that I thought were really good. I thought, oh God, how am I going to write as well as that? And I'm going to be judged by these people and I'm not going to be able to make it. And so I guess that's the pressure one feels as a younger, I don't mean younger in terms of age, but just a less experienced writer is going to feel that pressure of, being good enough to stay and to stick on that show. And that's hard. So it's hard. It's harder than it looks, and then if you travel, if you're from anywhere outside of Los Angeles, and you go back home, people think you're rich, famous, you don't really work that much, you just show up at, award shows. By the way, I've been doing this for almost 40 years. I've never been to an award show. It's not at all what it appears to be from the outside, and it feels like it's really hard on every level as a writer, to me anyway. And still, by the way.
Right. How about you, Tony?
Yeah, I think my misconception was that it was going to be more mine, and that the writer had, when I heard that different writers write different episodes, that you write something and that's what goes on screen. I didn't quite realize how collaborative it was and how many, that you were going to get notes from all these different sources, starting with, other writers on the staff, the showrunner, the network, the studio, the actors, the production people that want to make everything cheaper to shoot. I mean, there's so many cooks in the kitchen, and I thought it would be more of your own voice. And it was a challenge to find a way to keep your voice even when all these things were chipping away at it. And you hand it in, you take a deep breath, and you know that now the battle starts, because now it's when everybody comes in to sort of chip away at it. And I think at first, when you're a young writer, a new writer, new at this, you're protective of it, and you feel like you want to defend from all these comers. And and when people give you notes, sometimes they're tearing it down, but sometimes they're building it up. Sometimes they're seeing things you didn't see and they're building on. And in fact, it's a phrase we use a lot in the writer's room now. We say, I want to build on what you just said, so that the person doesn't feel attacked, maybe.
You reminded me of a couple things, Tony. One is, I always say some of the best writing I've ever done was written by somebody else. And that's because everybody in the room is contributing to your script all the time. And anything that is good, you're taking. By the same token, when you're in the room, you're contributing to other people's scripts as well. And so while you may not have written that particular line, it's in your script and you're getting credit for writing it, whether, credit or blame, as the case may be. Also, I had a writer working for me one time, and she said this to me, which really endeared her to me forever. She said, when you rewrite my scripts, they don't always get better. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? She said, I just don't think they get better, but they always get closer to what they need to be. And we had a very challenging star on that show. And I was sort of the star whisperer on that show. And I was the guy who would be delivering these scripts, because I sort of had a sense of what that star could do and wouldn't do, and what that person needed in a script. So I took that as a high compliment. And then I said to her, well, that's exactly why the scripts do get better. Because if the star accepts the script, it's better than getting a call at 2 a.m. from that person saying, we're shooting at 7 a.m. tomorrow and I'm not doing this script. I don't know what you're going to do about it.
I think we could do a whole episode on whether you have a big star at the lead of your show as opposed to an ensemble cast.
Oh, yeah.
The difference.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for answering those questions. I know you're going to help a lot of writers. Before we go, would you like to do a pop quiz?
Sure.
Great.
I live.
All right.
I live for pop quizzes.
You live for pop quizzes? Okay.
I might have to defer
play.
to Tony on some of these.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, we're going to play. You wrote the show.
Oh, God.
But you know the show.
Oh.
Okay. And today's topic is going to be Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which aired on Fox. And I personally think was a TV show before its time.
So what do we win? Is there anything to win?
You win absolutely nothing but the pleasure of playing the game.
Oh, God. Okay.
How is that? I'm going to start off with a softball question. When Sarah Connor had to give bad news to John Connor, what would she make for breakfast?
Was that a thing in the show?
Did Sarah Connor cook? She wasn't that domestic.
Yeah, I don't think she
pancakes.
Yes,
I
Tony's
don't know
right.
how I remembered that. It's the only thing I could think of.
There you go.
Wow.
Maybe because I like pancakes.
Oh, Tony, I was going to say that, but I didn't.
I don't remember her cooking a lot in the show, though. She was busy saving the world,
Yeah.
Yes, that was in Josh's pilot.
Ah, okay.
But I think it showed up throughout the series, too.
I don't think I ever saw the pilot.
Yes, you did.
Kidding.
Yeah. Okay. How many seasons did Sarah Connor Chronicles run for? And there'll be a bonus point if you know how many episodes were shot.
Oh, a season, 2 seasons, but one of them was 9 episodes and one was 22. So that would be 31 episodes.
Wow. John just nailed it.
Awesome.
Tony.
Yeah, I knew we had a short season, the first season, because the writer's strike happened.
Yeah.
While we were in the middle of shooting, we had to stop. And I do know that was one of the things that bonded the staff, is we had to go and picket together across from the Taco Bell at Warner Brothers Studios. And that's why we had a short season. And I think we were worried that would we get picked up, because we didn't really get to show all our stuff, because it was cut short. But we did come back for second season. And it was I wished we'd had more, honestly. It was a fun show.
Okay. What was the name of the song Shirley Manson, singer of Garbage?
Donald, where's your trousers?
No, not on set.
No, it was in the show.
Well, did
no,
she sing?
You know what? I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. The Terminator sang that song, and the only reason I guess Shirley is because it's a Scottish song, and she's Scottish, and she sang it on the set in rehearsal to teach the Terminator how to sing it. So I have a memory of her singing it. But you're right. She sang the Bruce Springsteen song that Josh was obsessed with, Sampson and Delilah.
I have told you both what my all-time favorite scene of the entire series is. Can you name that scene?
Was it the swimming pool scene?
Yes, John, you're right. You got it. It was Cromartie was throwing the FBI team into the pool.
He wasn't throwing
Oh,
it.
yeah.
He was killing them, and they were falling in.
He was killing them. That's right.
Right. I believe Ian Goldberg wrote that episode. And the song is amazing.
Yeah. I can't remember who directed that episode. Maybe
what episode was it? Mm-hmm.
Was that was in,
it was season 1, episode 9.
Season 1, episode 9. Are you sure it was season 1?
Yeah, what he beheld.
Oh, right. The song, the Johnny Cash song was "The Man Comes Around."
The Man Comes Around. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So good. It's on YouTube. I think people should go look it up, or just rent purchase the DVDs and watch the series. It's so good.
There are a couple of nice DVD sets, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
What? What did you say?
I said there's a couple of nice DVD sets.
Yes.
By the way, on my most recent series for Netflix, I asked them if they could provide me with DVDs. And one of the young guys looked at me and said, would you like VHS copies with that, old man?
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, okay, boomer. And they were like, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as DVDs anymore. I was like, oh, okay.
They're not even going to send out DVDs for Academy voting anymore after this year.
Thank God. What a waste.
Which is actually probably, I have thousands of them, I think, around my
You
house.
can't get rid of them.
No, there is a great organization that donates them to, we collect them every year and send them because there's an organization that sends them to soldiers overseas. So that's the first thing I thought of was, oh no, if they don't do the DVDs, the soldiers won't get them. And I'm sure that was a cool thing for them to have. So I feel bad about it, but it'll save a lot of, because it's true. You get thousands of those, and they just, every year it's like, what do we do with all these?
You got any other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Challenging
one
questions.
One last question.
I think we're doing
I'm
well on our quiz.
I'm very impressed. I have a couple more, but I'll end with this one, unless you're having too much fun.
I'm having fun. I love this.
Okay, great. We'll keep going then. I'll go do
if we stop, Sandy, I have to go write. And as we all know, writers will do anything to procrastinate from writing. So as we're yours, as long as you want to keep us, because I'm yours.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
The wonderful
waiter. Yes, I'll have another on the rock. I wish.
The wonderful Summer Glau played Cameron. Josh Friedman, the creator of the show, named her in tribute to who?
Duh, John. Okay, I'm purposely. I was going to let you have that one, John.
I don't know.
You do know. Come on. Even I know that.
Cameron.
I have a better question, or let's say a more difficult question.
Yeah.
That possibly relates to one of my episodes.
Oh, time out, Tony.
Or is that coming up?
No, say I want to build on your question.
I want to build on your question. Oh, you're
there
right.
You
I'm so sorry. That was really dumb. I just meant a better question to save John, since he's embarrassing himself by not knowing that question, which I'm sure you know. You're just kidding,
John, do you really not know?
He's kidding.
You're kidding, right?
What?
You're
kidding, right?
Kidding.
Was it James Cameron?
Yeah.
Did you Wikipedia that just now?
I did. No.
Come on.
All right. What's your Allison from Palmdale question?
Oh my God! You just blew my. Oh,
what?
Yes, I was going to ask, who is she modeled after?
Allison from Palm. By the way, that's one of my favorite episodes of the series.
Thank you, John. Your check will be in the mail.
Okay, another question. Andy Good built an advanced artificial intelligence system that could play chess. What was the computer called?
Queen's Gambit. Wasn't that the name of that episode?
Mm-hmm.
Cameron? Oh no.
Allison?
I don't know. You stumped me on this one. I don't remember.
The Turk. The Turk.
The Turk.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, the Turk.
The Turk.
Damn, I'm
Yes.
learning this piano song written by a guy named Turk.
Well, adding up the score, John Worth,
Wow.
you are the winner. And I'll do a recount, but for now, I just wanted to say thank you, John and Tony. This has really been fun, and I hope you come back and do a rematch.
Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for the Page Awards and your organization, because they didn't have these kind of things when I was coming up, and I think these organizations like this, there's so many resources that help
Invaluable.
newer writers. Absolutely, and they would do well to take in the they have access to so many professionals who can give them a view into and maybe give them a leg up. I hope that we can, and it's wonderful that you do that for the writers who are starting out. And good luck to everybody out there. It's a wonderful job. I highly recommend. And just keep it. Don't give up. Just keep at it. Keep writing.
Great. Thank you. That's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and thrive. Till we get to hang out again, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards. Executive producer, Kristin Overn. Producers, Terry Sampson and Sandy Adomaitis. Music by Ethan Stoller.